Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Black Menace. I am your host, Nisi Edwards, and today's guest is Tayna A. Royster, MD. Dr. Royster is a clinician, teacher, researcher, innovator, legal consultant, and media expert. Dr. Royster has a long-standing commitment to healthy neighborhoods and communities, culturally competent care services, reducing healthcare disparities, and expanding health equity. She is a leader who gets things done and understands the need for treating vulnerable residents with dignity and care. She has published and provided service to the academic community, her profession, and her community in a variety of endeavors. Welcome, Dr. Royster. How are you doing? Welcome to Black Menace.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to have this conversation.
So am I. I'm so glad you're here. And what we're going to be talking about today is, besides Black Menace, which is what this is all about, educating the African American community about COVID and how to stay safe. And Dr. Royster, all this week, I have been speaking with my support group. So I run a support group because I run a not-for-profit geared towards people with chronic pain. And one of the things I've been sharing with my audience is the purpose of, number one, self-care and making good decisions for them and their family. And that's where I want to start with you today, talking about making good decisions for you and your family. And I realize that's different for everyone.
Absolutely. I think that's really the most important thing, because there is such inaccurate information out there for the general public and certainly for the Black community. People don't know what to do. And so then we start judging each other, we start blaming each other, we start, making fun of each other, because everybody's trying to do the best they can with the little bit of information that they have. And so I really have, as you said, Nisi, tried to help people focus on making good decisions for them and their family. We know that this disease is contagious. We know that the closer proximity you are to people, the more risk you have in terms of obtaining this disease, COVID-19, from someone else if they have it. But we also know that many people in the Black community are working the jobs that require us to leave our homes. We are the civil service workers, the garbage men, the postmen, the grocery store clerks, the retail clerks, the restaurant workers, the doctors, the lawyers, the nurses. We are all of those things. And so we're leaving our homes, I think, more than some other communities. And then many in urban settings in particular take public transportation, not because they want to be on a crowded bus, but because that's the only way for them to get to their jobs to be able to feed their families. So when we talk about making good decisions, we have to remember that everybody is coming from a different place. If
Yes.
I'm a garbage worker that has to take the bus to work, then don't shame me and don't blame me. Help me figure out strategies. We all need to be wearing masks. We all need to be staying home to the greatest degree possible. But when we do go out, we need to understand that people are making those decisions for a wide variety of reasons. And we need to support each other rather than blaming each other, rather than deriding each other, or hurting each other, because eventually that's what we're doing.
I agree. And then to add to that, what I would say is when it comes down to making good decisions for you and your family, if you don't know where to start, talk to professionals such as yourself or others to get some help. Because the one thing that I want to impress upon people is this is not the time to bury your head in the sand and say, well, I don't know. You may not know, but there are a variety of resources out there, reliable resources, I should emphasize.
Yes.
On that journey. And in addition to that, you mentioned about wearing masks. That is so, so important. And the one thing that I want people to understand about the mask is you're wearing a mask. The mask is protecting others from you. If they're wearing a mask, it's protecting you from them. Okay. There's nothing wrong with wearing a mask. It's the purpose of it is to flatten that curve and to keep us all safe. I go shopping, I limit, Dr. Royster, my activity as much as I possibly can. But when I have to go out and about, I wear a mask. I even have gloves. I bought a box of masks and they were individually wrapped, about 10 in the pack. And so I keep them in my car so that if I'm driving, I have them with me at all times. And there's nothing wrong with wearing a mask. Some people say, well, I can't breathe in a mask. I have purchased all kinds of masks and I have been able to breathe.
Yes.
All of them.
Yes.
I have purchased one where I've encountered the situation where people have said, I can't breathe. I can breathe. So now I have had a situation being a woman of color where I have walked into a store and the store owner looked at me as if, oh my goodness, you know, that look that says, I wonder what is she going to do to me? I will not take my mask off because again, when they see me wear my mask, to me is also a sign of respect because I am sending the message that your life matters, my life matters too. So no, we don't know if we are asymptomatic, if we are carrier. So with me wearing my mask, I'm not spreading my germs to you. Vice versa, you wearing yours, you're not spreading yours to me. And that's our community to understand, especially young people. I saw a young man out, African-American young man. He probably was about 20 or 21. He had his backpack on. He was leaving one of the schools for practice, which I was really surprised that the school was still doing practice because I felt this is not the time for that. But anyway, he didn't have a mask on. He didn't have a mask on or anything. He had his earplugs listening to music. And I'm thinking, that's a problem there because many young people feel that they're going to live forever, that they're healthy, and that this pandemic, this coronavirus will not affect them. That's not true because many people are dying.
Yeah. I mean, everything you're saying, Nisi, is absolutely true. The mask is bidirectional protection. So you're protecting yourself, but you're also protecting others. And one of those things that goes into making good judgments is if you have a chronic disease, even if it's diabetes, high blood pressure, it might even be obesity, which African Americans have higher rates of all of these chronic diseases. Then if you get sick, you're much more likely to be more severely ill and to die. So all of these are reasons that we need to think very carefully about it. And as you stated, there have been young people, young healthy people in their teens, 20s, and 30s that have contracted this virus and passed away. So there used to be when and this is part of the problem that I talked about with inaccurate information. People started talking about this before we really knew anything. And so there was a belief that young people weren't going to get it. Young people couldn't spread it. And now we know that's not true. That's just flat out not true. And so you may be that young man walking down the street. You may contract the virus, but then you go visit your grandmother or your auntie, and then you can pass it to them, even though you feel perfectly fine. Or you could pass it to them and you don't get sick for a week. And you've already given it to them. And so that's the other problem with this disease is that there is an incubation period where we believe people can still pass the virus, but they don't know they have it yet because they haven't had symptoms. So all of these are reasons for us to use our best judgment, minimize our contact with people, even when you're with people that you think you know, because it seems in the Black community, we feel like, well, if I know my cousin or I know my friend, then they can't have it, so they can't spread it to me. And nobody knows until it's too late.
That's true. And that goes back to, again, making good decisions. Because if you're healthy and grandma is living with you in your household, or you're going to visit grandma or grandpa, your uncles or aunts or whatever, and you know that they have a compromised immune system, they may be asthmatic, they may be diabetic, hypertension, any number of conditions, chronic illnesses, think about them that, you know what, how would you feel if you're asymptomatic, don't even know that you're a carrier, you come around them and spread it. And I thought about that, especially the month of July. I mean, because for the 4th of July. So with a lot of communities, celebration time, right?
Yeah.
People get together. They want to hang out. I get all that. But I look at it this way. This is not the time for partying. I'd rather we be having meetings via Zoom or whatever, FaceTime or whatever, checking in on one another to see how you're doing. And if you insist upon having these family gatherings outdoors, then wear your mask, be further apart,
Exactly.
But just think about, it's more than just thinking about yourself. Think about the people that you are affecting, the loved ones in your family. I don't know, Dr. Royster, if you saw on the local news, but I was reading about these people who had went to a church meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Many of them died. They contracted COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Also heard situations about people with church gatherings and beyond. And I look at that and I get frustrated and I say, what don't you get? You don't get it till you got it. And you don't.
Well, and the one thing we know about Black people is we are creative and we are resilient. So let's put some of that creativity to use. Like you said, let's get together, but let's sit apart. Let's have, I know it's hot right now, but let's have things in the evening, small number of people, everybody wears their mask, we sit at a distance from each other. Or we go to the park and we sit our chairs in a circle where we can still see each other, we can still listen to music. I saw one community in Detroit where the DJ put his booth in the middle of the street and everybody danced outside their front door on the sidewalk. So there was plenty of space, but they had a block party with physical distance between them. So we are creative people. So there's no reason that we can't still, express our community and our connectivity, because summertime and Black people, we know it's time to get together, right? But let's be creative and let's use all of those wonderful juices that we have to do it in a way that keeps everybody safe.
I agree. And one way of doing it when you think about the gatherings is, okay, maybe you have the grill master in your family who likes to grill or whatever. Maybe you're the designated person that you're grilling and you're preparing the meals, but you are doing some pre-prep. You're wrapping them up individual meals.
Yes.
Put them to the side. Other people practice social distancing, wearing your mask. Come up, maybe a few at a time, not too close. Pick yours up, go back to your table. Away from everyone, practice social distancing. Definitely plenty of hand washing.
Yes.
That will be around family, because the goal is to enjoy one another, enjoy with one another. And the best way of doing that is practice social distancing so we can all stay safe and live another day.
Absolutely.
And cherish them, because this is the first pandemic in my lifetime, your lifetime as well. And this is going to be with us for a while. So the next...
Well, it's actually not the first pandemic. There have been plenty. If you remember, not maybe 10 years ago, the H1N1 flu, right? And before that, Ebola. So there have been plenty, but I believe, and I don't particularly want to get political, but we had a federal government that had a system in place to support us, even vulnerable communities, so that when pandemics happened, the U.S. was not as adversely affected as the rest of the world. And unfortunately, right now, we don't have that. So this pandemic was visible around the world for several months before it made its way to the U.S. And we did not prepare, we did not give our residents, U.S. citizens, accurate information. And particularly in the Black community, we didn't know where to go. We didn't know what to do. As you said, people see a story, it sounds good. And I tell everybody, Google everything and Google it twice. Make sure that the information you're reading is accurate. If you can't ask your doctor, the CDC has tons of information on their website, but now there are lots of people like you and like I who are putting out videos on Facebook and Instagram to try to help people know that they have accurate information and use that information when they make decisions for their family.
Yes. Now, I think Ebola, they didn't classify that as a pandemic. They says it was an epidemic because it, like we see here with COVID. But those are lessons to learn from that, right?
Absolutely.
With the Ebola, I remember when there was a situation, you've probably heard it too, where people who were in places, on the continent of Africa and traveled various places, and some even made their way to Chicagoland area where they infected. So they were able to get to them in time. But like you said, for the Black community, I feel that the best place for us to get our news, okay, there are a variety of places. One is places like you and I, you know, our sites. And in addition to that, there are places such as Roland Marchard Unfiltered, other Black news organizations, because we're focusing on
Yes.
what's really happening in our community. Yes, there are other places outside of our community as well, you know, the CDC for one. But when you really want to get to the nitty gritty,
That's right.
times culturally competent information, as you've probably heard the phrase, put it where the goats can get it.
That's right.
You know, within our own community, such as, for example, the barbershops, the beauty salons. You know, we go get our hair done. We do a lot of talking. I wouldn't recommend anyone now spend a whole lot of time in those places unless they have practices in place where they're going to be wiping down everything. They're going to be wearing masks. You're going to be wearing masks, and they're not going to have a whole lot of people in there.
Yes.
And if we're not going to do those things, then we shouldn't be there. But those are the places, you know, where we talk, you know, just like at our dinner table with family, you know, and friends, where we really talk. I know I've been spending a lot of time, just like you yourself have, educating people on this is what you need to know. Contrary to what we have seen reported that, oh, this is just the flu. Oh, when the summer comes and it gets hot, it's going to kill it. Well, this is the summertime.
Right.
It is not the flu. Okay, so you've got to really think for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just look at it. Not to get political, but I am, in the sense that, you know what? Some of these politicians will say anything instead of really confronting the truth.
Right.
And the reason for that is, if I know, let's say, I'm responsible for not doing enough to protect the nation, and I don't want to be held accountable for that, what am I going to do? I'm going to deflect and put the onus on other people instead of owning up to the part that I played.
Yes.
It's leadership to step up to that plate, to say, you know what? I failed. I should have done a better job. I made a mistake. This is what I need to do to correct it.
Right.
We're not seeing any of that happening at all. I see a lot of Black and brown communities who have passed, you know, many people in their communities who have passed away. I was reading this week. I may have been Texas or Florida, maybe Florida. I'm not sure. One of those states where I know that they were really slow, probably Florida. They were really slow in stepping up. Mm-hmm. Okay. And when they called themselves trying to step up, the president was, you know, trying to put practices in place to try to tell these states what they should be doing. So, Dr. Royster, I'm in the state of Illinois. Our governor, Governor Pritzker, I feel has really done a fine job, along with Chicago's mayor, for those that live in Chicago, Lori Lightfoot. Mm-hmm. Homo, for example, in New York, where there's been many others, but those I know who have been very vocal, who stood up and said, look, no, this is what we're going to do to keep our communities safe. Some people didn't like it because they said, well, what about our jobs? Well, again, like you said earlier, many of us work a job where we don't have the luxury of staying home.
Right.
Okay. We may not have the luxury of staying home, and I really understand that, and I feel bad for those people who don't have that luxury. But at the same time, we need to take notice as to how deadly this pandemic is. Mm-hmm. You know, this is not the time to be playing around with this. Think about the babies who have died. Remember before they were saying it wasn't going to affect really children, and young children have died.
Yes. And I think that this is where we can take personal responsibility. So even though others high up may not take any responsibility, if you do work a job where you know you are exposed to the public more consistently than the average person, then you should even more so refrain from going to gatherings. You should refrain from being in places because your risk is higher, which means you pose a higher risk to the people around you. And so that's a personal responsibility. Other people can't do that for us. I talk about in some of my podcasts and some of my messages about the social fabric. When we were younger, everybody took care of everybody, right?
Yes.
It did not matter. And we have lost that sense of social connection and social responsibility as a Black community, as we have separated by physical distance, living in different parts of the city, and families not living, families used to live in the same city for generations and generations and generations. With that rupture of the social fabric, we have lost our personal responsibility of taking care of each other. And I think that we really need to figure out very, very quickly how to repair the social fabric so that we can get back to this sense of connectedness, sense of responsibility for each other, and understand that wearing a mask, not going to functions, even if someone invites you, that's a part of our personal responsibility to take care of those around us.
Absolutely. And this staying connected, you're absolutely right. I remember that, everyone checked in on one another. Mm-hmm. That was spirit value. We value people in our community. If we don't see you for a while, we're going to call you up, Miss Dorothy or whoever, to say, hey, how you doing? Can I greet you? We're going to check on one another. So with this sense of staying connected, I want to share with you what my sisters and I have started doing. So I'm in Illinois. My sisters are spread out in other states. So we have a night prayer group where we get together every Monday night. We're checking in on one another to see how everyone is doing. And we're praying for one another. And I've shared with them, I've said, hey, I have a chronic illness, so I can't come visit you. I don't want you to come visit me. Mm-hmm. I want all to stay safe. So when we stay safe is we're going to be checking in on each other constantly. Mm-hmm. It means several times a day, several times a week to let you know, hey, I'm here. So if you are going through a hard time, you're worried, you're stressed, that's what we're here to help one another out. And I think we really need to, as a community, get back to those basics.
Yeah. And it's funny, everybody has a cell phone, but I have kind of started using this phrase, we're the most connected that we've ever been, right? So Everybody has a cell phone, but we don't call each other anymore. If we see you on social media, and people know that on social media, people post the image they want to project. Pick up the phone, give somebody a call. Don't assume that everything's okay just because they posted a picture on Facebook or they posted a meme on Facebook or Instagram. Pick up the phone and call people and just check on them and then actually listen. When you ask them how you doing, if they say, I'm good, say, no, how are you really doing? Like really ask them to talk to you and not just take that superficial answer. We have got to get back to listening to each other and looking out for each other. And use those phones. You paid a whole lot of money for those phones, okay? So use them for something constructive and check on each other. It doesn't matter, old, young, friends, family. Let's get back and connect with each other.
Yeah, that's true. That's vitally important. When you think about social media, to my personal opinion, you shouldn't be putting all your business out there anyway.
Right.
Okay. So, that's the time, because you can post a feel-good looking picture, a picture from way back when, but that really may not be where you're at today, because with this virus, this pandemic is also dealing with our emotions.
Absolutely.
Many people have been locked up in the house for months and months. They miss going out. Their lifestyle has changed and it's taken its toll. Depression, for one thing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, isolation, there was just starting to be more information about how in this disconnected, connected society, isolation was becoming a pandemic where people were, even though they were in spaces with other people, they really felt alone and they really felt disconnected. And that affects your physical health, your spiritual being, your emotional health. And so people have really, I think with this pandemic, just ramped that up to like 25, right? So yes, the isolation is leading to depression, is leading to anxiety, leading to problems sleeping, poor appetite.
Yes.
And if you're having a severe case of any of those things, certainly talk to your primary care doctor or if you have a therapist. But we can start with just talking to each other. We can start with just helping each other and just supporting each other. And that will go a really long way.
It will. I've recently started calling friends, colleagues that I used to work with that I was very close with, for many years. And I'm glad I started doing that, because I called one the other day and she says, "Oh, Nisi, it's so good to hear from you. I just feel left behind. I'm all alone." And I said to her, "Hey, feel free to call me anytime." And tell people that sometimes they may not reach out to you, which means you still need to, if you really care, you still need to be the one standing in the gap for them.
Absolutely.
Reaching out to them, because some people, you can be in the situation for so long that you don't know what you need anymore. You're not thinking straight or clearly.
And I think for many people in the Black community, you have dealt with some level of sadness, depression, anger for so long that you may not even recognize that you have it now. Because, there's so many things that plague us and our emotional well-being on a day-to-day basis, that this is just maybe the straw that broke the camel's back. So it's really important for us to know that we can be depressed, we can be anxious, we can have effects from all this trauma that is going on in the world, the trauma of the racial injustice, the trauma of people dying who we care about from COVID-19. And we have to take care of each other. We have to take care of ourselves. We have to support each other.
That's true. With the pandemic and the protesters and the police brutality, all that's the perfect storm for that's going on right now. When I think about the protesters out there for Black Lives Matter, I understand why they're out there, but I pray for them too, because when I'm looking at with all these people out there in close proximity to one another, that can potentially be something brewing, with COVID. So I look at all that. One question that I just wanted to ask you about is the children. How can people help their children cope? Because it can be a young child who noticed something different, but how to verbalize that and doesn't understand what's happening.
I think children, and then also after we talk about children, let's talk about pets, because we love our pets, right? And this, for a child to have their whole routine uprooted, right? Even a little child who goes to the babysitter every day, or who goes to daycare every day, or an older child who goes to school every day, to suddenly have that wiped away. Many children found it very difficult to do their schoolwork at home because they're just not used to being in the mindset of active learning. They do homework, but homework is practice and application. So they really struggled with the active learning environment in the physical place of home, which was very different from them. And many parents struggled because we didn't know what to tell them. And parents tried not to talk, many parents tried not to talk to kids about it because they didn't know what to say. I have been encouraging parents, meet your child where they are. If they ask, then they obviously want to know. It doesn't mean to tell them, a graduate school level explanation about COVID-19, but talk to them where they are on their level, use the same words that they use. A lot of children, even if they made it through the school year, now that summer is here, and kids look forward to summer all year, right? Now there's summer, but there's no going to visit anybody. There's no going to the water parks. There's no going to the pool or the beach. So kids are having some issues. Some of them are acting out behaviorally. Some of them are sleeping all day because they don't find any reason to get up out of bed. But those should all be signs to parents that we need to have conversation. We need to talk with our children, and we need to help them figure out ways to cope. So yeah, we can't go to the beach or we can't go to Disney World, but let's try to make a fun activity at home. Let's walk, let's do this. Let's work with them, help them brainstorm with you and come up with some things that you can do. It won't be the same, but at least they will acknowledge that we are going through something different and we need to do things differently.
Yes. What concerns me is people living in some communities where it may not be safe for them to go walking, because gunshots or whatever. So they're already traumatized.
Yes.
So here comes the police brutality. Here comes COVID. okay,
Mm-hmm.
to be able to get out of the house. They may not have a backyard where they can go. So they're at a socioeconomic disadvantage in that they may not be able to do some of these things safely.
Yes.
That's a challenge in itself, because unfortunately, you know, if people are going to be shooting or gang banging or whatever it is, even during COVID, they're not taking a break. It's still
No,
spot on.
you're right. You're right. And I'm glad you brought that up. So I have told everybody, be creative, right? So spread out a blanket in the living room and have a picnic or a barbecue right in the living room. Put a funny something that you don't like, a show with a beach, a movie with a beach in it, and let that play in the background while you have, or do a scavenger hunt around your apartment or around your house and hide little things and have the kids read the clues and try to figure it out. And there are things that you can do inside your home. Yes, it's different than going out. And maybe if you have a vehicle, you can drive out and stay in the car, but go out and look at some different scenery. So we're creative, resilient people. We can come up with things if we just don't sit in that space of lamenting what we don't have. Because the reality is we don't have it. But what do we have is we have each other. We have our creativity. We have the will to be better and do better. And so let's and bring the kids in on it. Kids are great with coming up with stuff, right? And so this is a time to let them shine with all of that creativity.
It is. You know, I agree with everything you just said. And then the other part of that, unfortunately, is you have people who may be in abusive relationships who really need to get out and to get away. So now they're at home with this abuser who, if they're not working, you know, that's a whole another issue. And I feel that's where, you know, our ladies, or even if it's a man abuse, need to still call the authorities to get some type of help. Now,
one thing, just to quickly address that, Nisi, one thing that all women who are being abused should do is you should have one person that has like a safe word. So, yes. You know, so and something mundane. So it might be spaghetti dinner, right? So you might text your friend and say, we're having spaghetti for dinner. And they know that you need help. They know to send the authorities. They know, right? So these, and sometimes people escalate to things that they didn't anticipate because of the strain and stress. They say in that COVID-19 is either bringing relationships closer together or ripping them apart.
Yes.
And so if you find yourself in a situation where things are being ripped apart and things are being stressful, make sure that you have someone you don't have to explain. They just know that when they see the code word in a text or they hear the code word in a conversation that you leave them a voicemail, they know you need help, no questions asked, they're coming to get you.
I'm really liking that you brought that up, because I have a friend who is being victimized by domestic abuse. She's away from her abuser, and she has that code phrase, whatever it is, you know, and they even have something set up now with some of the organizations that work with battered and abused women, that when you, let's say you have to get your own place, they have set up where you don't even have to use your own name, you know, another name. I don't know what the term they use for that, so that nobody knows that that's you at that locality. Is still keeping them safe. And you're right, with that code phrase, people don't have to call you to say, hey, what's going on? They know when they hear that, bring reinforcement, because there's a problem here.
Yep.
It's a big problem. Now, did I hear you mention something about our pets?
Yes. So, you know, one thing that people haven't thought about is your pets in some ways are like your children. So your pet is used to you getting up every day, leaving the house, coming back at the end of the day, going for a walk here or there. And now all of a sudden you're home all day, every day. And your pets, they're loving it. But as you start to go out, as some people have started to go back to work, that could actually cause depression and anxiety in your pets, because it's an abrupt change either way, right? So now you staying home, they've been like, oh, this is great. And then you start leaving the house more and leaving them unattended more, and they might start peeing all over the house again, or pooping, or tearing up stuff, which they haven't done since they were a puppy or a kitten or something. And so we have to remember that our pets have emotions too, and that we have to think about how us being so close to them and so available for them and then that's shifting again, could have an impact on them as well.
You know, it's interesting that you brought that up because I have a Siberian Husky. Her name is Pepper.
Mm-hmm.
We're the third owner. So she's been now for a year, and I view it as this is her forever home. Okay. Well, what's been happening is that she had to have a couple of appointments at the vet. And I noticed, okay, so when you go to the vet now, I can't go in there with her. You park in the parking lot, they come out, and you take your dog in. And she's been feeling a lot of stress with that because she's looking at that saying, well, wait a minute,
leave me, right?
Why am they're taking me? Are you gonna leave me behind? What's going on? And then it happened again. I noticed the behavior changed last week when she went in again. This time she jumped up on me. As if I don't want to go. And that's what it is. That stress and the emotions, because she's trying to figure out, normally when I come here, you're with me. Now you're not with me. What does this mean?
Absolutely. And pets don't have words, right? So again, in some ways, like a small child, they only have their behavior to show us that they're feeling uncomfortable.
Yes. And I don't know if you heard it, but you know, some people have actually been giving up their pets during this pandemic because they thought that they had contacted COVID from their animal. And I thought, well, if your pet is in your house nonstop, your backyard, where are they going? Who are they been in contact with to get it? They got it from you, you know. So, the new owner. That's so funny to me. But I'm so glad you mentioned that because that was left out of the, equation. And I've noticed at times she's more needy than others because she's used to my routine that this time I'm gone for these many hours and then I come back home, right? So now it's, well, you're here, what's going on? All those things. So our fur babies, because I'm going to tell you, that is my baby. So Dr. Royster, this has just been so awesome. I mean, everything that you just shared. I mean, all this. I mean, the self-care, making decisions for you and your family, staying connected. Briefly, we talked about, I know we didn't talk about living in your purpose, but before I go there, we talked about also managing your emotions, helping your children cope. I mean, all this is just awesome. So living in your purpose, how can you do that when we're in the middle of this pandemic?
I think that one of the things that this pandemic has offered many people who have been willing to take advantage of it is time for self-reflection. You have the time to actually reflect and think about, if I'm not doing what my spirit tells me I'm meant to do, what steps can I take to start on that path? And so now it may be research on the computer. It may be volunteering online to start up some kind of service. It may be like you did, Nisi, starting a new digital series. I mean, there are so many things that are available to us now. And being home has given some people, many people, the time for self-reflection. Now, of course, it's been very stressful. So it's hard to move forward when you're stressed and anxious and worried. But finding your purpose, beginning to think about your purpose and live in your purpose is one of the things that can calm your spirit, can calm your anxiety. It can help you find peace. And there are many, many steps. I mean, many people think that living in their purpose means you're already there, but you have to take steps each and every day to get there. And so we can do that now. And, I think this is actually one of the benefits of us being home is this time for self-reflection, the time of talking with our families. And remember, living in your purpose, it might be that you're a connector. So maybe your purpose is to talk to people and to call people when you haven't had the time to do that because you've been on the bus or the train or driving to work for 2 hours a day. Now you have the time to connect to people. Maybe you're an encourager, right? And maybe you are just sending out little text messages of encourage, hang in there, I'm thinking about you, you're great, you're worth it. My aunt lives in Dallas, Texas, and she has been making sandwiches at home and then dropping them off at the homeless shelter. A simple thing, but it's
Yeah.
helped her stay engaged and be a part of living in her purpose. And so there are so many small things that we can do. And I think this is the opportunity to take some of those baby steps to help us be where we want to be when this is all over.
I totally agree. And then the other part of that is maybe you know, are wanting a new job. Maybe you need skill set. This is the time where you can invest in that. I mean, there's places such as Coursera and Future Learn that offer courses. I know that, for example, with Coursera, for people who want to be contact tracers, because that's a new and upcoming new career field.
Yeah.
There are community colleges that are offering that, but they charge you for it. With Coursera, that's training by Johns Hopkins University. They're offering it for free right now up to a limited period of time, and you even get a certificate of completion. So that's a good way of starting a new field. Starting into a new field, you get the education, you get the training. Even if it's not contact tracing, they got so many wonderful courses out there, you know, on learning. There's even something, masterclass passes. So I tell people, you know, I ask people in my support group, so what do you all want to work on? You know, what are your thoughts about that? And they says, well, what do you mean work on? What can we do? And I says, you know what? That's where creativity comes in. There's a lot. I says, you got a computer, you got a tablet, a cell phone? Yes. I'm like, you can join this course for free.
That's right. There are so many colleges and universities, community colleges, organizations all around the country that are offering free online training right now, so you don't have to be worried about being in the classroom. And I just heard a news story, I believe it was yesterday, where Mayor Lightfoot said that anyone who in the last 10 years has gone to Malcolm X Community College in Chicago, but they didn't finish their degree, they will be able to go back to college for free at Malcolm X and finish their degree for free. If they finish their degree, she'll wipe out their student loan debt from the past as well. So look, please research. People are coming up with things because the workforce is going to change after this. And so the more skills you can get, the more learning you can get, the more prepared you'll be for whatever this new workforce looks like when the world starts to figure itself out. So that was just announced yesterday for people who live in Chicago and who have gone to Malcolm X College and didn't finish. So I'm sure that other people around the country are doing different types of things. So, you know, use that research. If you don't know how to use a computer well, ask a young person because they'll find it. They know how to do it. There's somebody in your life that can help you figure this out.
And that's a tremendous blessing that if you finish it, she will wipe away that debt. That's free education, you know?
Absolutely.
Now, I live in Lake County, and the Lake County Department of Health, they are hiring a total of 50 contact tracers. Mm-hmm. And do that training on Coursera with Johns Hopkins University, you know, you're good to go because it's going to prepare our Black and brown people for new careers, you know? So it may be a better opportunity versus what you're currently doing, or if you're unemployed, you know, underemployed or whatever it is, it's definitely worth looking into. So thank you so much for sharing that about Chicago, because that I have not heard, but that's good to know.
Yeah.
So Dr. Royster, you get the last word.
Oh, I just want to encourage everyone to take care of yourself, take care of each other, use good judgment. Think about all the things we've talked about today. I know there is one person in your life that you can talk to. It's not, you know, because some people are going to BS you. They're going to shuck and jive you. They're going to tell you what you want to hear. But there's one person that you can really talk about this with and think and make good decisions. Don't be afraid to ask for help, whether it's a young person, whether it's an older person. Let's support each other. You know, we talked about repairing the social fabric. That's one of the ways that we can do it, connecting intergenerationally. And you can follow me on any social media platform to see my once or twice a week. I post little inspirational videos with lots of information about finding your purpose, staying in your joy, dealing with COVID, all different types of topics. On Instagram, it's Dr. T for a Better World, the number 4. And on Facebook, It's Tayna A. Royster, MD. You can see all of my videos cataloged on YouTube. So, you know, if you need information, reach out on any of those platforms. I'm more than willing to help as well.
I think that's beautiful. Everyone, please take note of everything that she listed in terms of where you can find her and contact her. Please follow this sister. Very, very educated, has a heart for people, souls, and lives, and rebuild. So, Dr. Royster, thank you for being on Black Menace. You know, we got to work together again.